Happy New Year, and welcome to the first edition of Coffee with a Veteran for 2022. My name is Lee Anderson. I'll be your host for this. Welcome to Coffee with a Veteran. Thank you for joining our community. If you're seeing this, it's probably because you've had an invite to join our community on Facebook, and eventually we'll expand out to Twitter and Instagram. But if you've just recently joined us, thank you. Appreciate you joining us. I think this is going to be a great journey as we move along. So, what is Coffee with a Veteran, and why did we start this? Why has this come about? Well, Coffee with a Veteran was really born out of just understanding our community. Our community is so diverse and so influential, and I feel like sometimes our story doesn't seem to get out there. And after talking with a bunch of veterans and figuring out, what our life is like and how do you define a veteran, and it's really easy to say, well, a veteran served in the military, but it's much more than that. And I feel like sometimes we are misunderstood, maybe miscast, maybe misshapen by politics that's happening in our country right now. And so I felt it was best to get our story out and let us tell the story, not just what the politicians and the talking heads want to say about who we are, but us. We tell our story and we get that information out there. So it was very important that we start this, and through, like I said, a lot of consultation with friends and fellow veterans, especially the veterans and family, that we felt like this was a good place to start. And with a lot of encouragement from some folks, we decided to get this going. So how do we define a veteran? I mean, what's the best way to talk about this? Well, we've already talked about, we all served, right? We've all been there, done that, with defending our country, and we put service before self and allowed that to define us. But I think back about this and how we got this started, and I think about my Uncle Bob. And my Uncle Bob just recently passed, and he was a Army veteran that served in Korea in between the Korean War and before the Vietnam War. So it was in that era right there. And every time I talk to him, every time we come over and have a conversation and talk to him, and he would say, I hated my time in the military, just hated it, and he would talk about the brutally cold nights, walking the DMZ and having to defend that area of turf. And he would talk about how much he hated it, but, every time I go over there, we'd have a conversation about it. And so that got me to the point of thinking, how much does our military service define us? And I felt like, I don't care how good or how bad your military service was, almost every veteran I talk to, regardless of what they say about it, there is a piece of that military that has stuck with them and has been a major piece of their life, and it defines them as they move forward. And of course, we get into life and we get into our circumstances in life, and we adjust our lives to that. But really, at the core of who we are, our lives are really, I believe, influenced heavily by our military experience. Now, some of us have had served just 2 years. I served 21 years in the Navy, retired as a chief warrant officer, but I started out as an E1. So, of course, the influence on me was probably greater than somebody that served 2 years and got out. No matter how short or how long your service, it definitely affected you. Now, some of the traits of who we are. One thing that I've come to find out with your average veteran is that there is a love of country that is unmistakable, and we wear it on our sleeves. I remember before I got out of the military, I remember seeing those old guys that are wearing the ball caps, right? That talked about, what their command was, that they were Navy veterans. And I thought, nah, I'm not going to be that guy, right? But funny thing about it is it didn't happen. I wear that with pride myself. And I think you see that across the board. We have a love of country. We have a love of our service, pride of service. And we also have a fervent defense of our constitutional rights that we fought for, that we stood up, gave an oath, and said that we will defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I feel like that oath meant something to us. Maybe at the time it felt like it was just words to say, but I think upon reflection, I think we all feel like that meant something in our lives. And the other thing that I felt that I've seen in most veterans is that we're not happy with the direction that the country is going in, and with wokeism and the politicization of everything we do is something that I don't know if a veteran is not happy about. Making enemies out of people that shouldn't be enemies. We fought our wars, and we fought our battles, and we were engaged in conflicts, and we felt like the enemy was out there. But now what we're seeing is that the enemy is within, and that bothers us. And I see that pretty much across the board. The other thing that I think, and something that kind of lends on more to what I'm just talking about, is that most of the veterans I know don't care about race, color, creed, religion, gender. We don't care about that. A brother is a brother, a sister is a sister, and that's it. And I think that's a very important trait in how we come together as a community. And I think that's what makes us such a strong bonding community. So those are my thoughts on what I think what a veteran is. So why the name? Why the name Coffee with a Veteran? So like I said, I was in the Navy. A good portion of my Navy career, I was a chief petty officer on board a number of ships. And to me, when I look back on my career, that was the defining moment of my time. I felt my years as a chief petty officer were just they were tough, they were rewarding, they were sad sometimes, they were difficult, we were constantly underway. It felt like we just dealt with problems, but it was so rewarding and it was so satisfying. And there's something about serving your fellow sailors. All in all, we always cared about the sailors first, and that was what we were all about. It was about leadership, and it was about being there for the deck plate sailor and taking care of them. As I remember back, I think back, I had a captain that used to say, have you had coffee with a chief? And what he meant was that the chief's mess was all about was our mess. This is how we solve problems. This is where issues came into the mess and solutions came out, and this is where we solved it. And so the captain would always say to anybody that was there, either an officer or chief, whatever, did you go have coffee with the chief? And it always struck me, and it stayed with me. And so I felt like moving forward that when this idea was presented to me, what would be the perfect name? And I thought, well, Coffee with a Veteran, because this is where we get our information out. I feel like I'd like to bring that forward and bring that to us. So some of the things that we're going to do in the future is we're going to talk about life stories. We're going to talk about issues that concern our community. There's going to be discussions. There's going to be interviews. We're going to talk about about folks' achievements, about goals, about aspirations. We also want to direct our conversations towards those that are just getting prepared to come out. I think one of the things that I've seen as a general commentary on our transition from military to civilian was that it was incomplete, that it did not take care of us. One of the things that has happened, I believe, in our community is that we're finding out on hindsight that we have not been prepared enough to initially go out to the civilian community. The number 22, when you ask a veteran, what does the number 22 mean to them? And I don't know of a veteran that won't tell you that means 22 suicides a day. And so when we talk about that, that digs at us very deeply, deep in our soul. And I think it's something that if we could all change, we would do that in a heartbeat. That's something that we're passionate about, that we'd love to change. And I think it's important to all of us. It doesn't matter what branch of service that you were from. It has affected us all equally. And I believe if we have the opportunity to turn that around, this is where this forum could help. That a transitioning sailor could see what our life is like on the outside. And so when they see that we've struggled, but we've overcame that will help them when they're doing their transition and help them to overcome their struggles that they're going to see. You know, some of the struggles that we've seen have been things like, just lack of a sense of community or connection or ability to coexist in a community that maybe isn't the same of what they had. So that's very important to us. So hopefully this will help out with that problem. Mostly what I want to hear is from you. If you want me to do an interview on your life story, on accomplishments that you have, or organizations that you started to help the veteran community, I'd definitely love to hear your story. I'd love to interview you. We can try to come out to your place. That may be difficult if it's cross country. Like I said, I'm in Bakersfield, California. And so if you're in New York, then we may have a little bit of difficulty on this. But technology has also given us the opportunity to do virtual interviews as well. And so I've done a few of those before. So if you'd like your story to be told, then please contact me. And my contact information is right here. So if you contact me, I'd love to hear your story and get your story out there. So anyway, grab your cup of coffee and let's talk about our stories.